part of that subcommittee too. Thank you. That's right, we're live streaming. Let's start off with Alistair. Let's start off with House Bill 226, the bill that has a name but ostensibly talks about placing cameras in self-contained special education classrooms. We have a series of amendments to this that have been constructed. If he's going to go through all of them, I'd like to take them as a whole if we can, under consideration. But if anybody has ones that they would, after he's done, if they'd like to separate something out, we can talk about that and we can move on the other parts. Alistair, it's your show.
Thank you, sir. So this bill does have a name. It's being renamed under this series of amendments to be the Public Schools Self-Contained Special Education Classroom Video Recording Pilot Program, because the bill is being changed to from a thing that is going to be established in every self-contained special education classroom in the state to a pilot program that will be run by the Division of Early Intervention and Special Education within the State Department of Education. Additionally, so the first change to the bill is, if you guys have this document that I sent very briefly before this meeting, on page 2 of that document, the definition of exclusion area is removed from the bill, and indeed, the bill will no longer pertain to exclusion areas. The video recording devices will just be located in the self-contained special education classrooms themselves. Moving down from page 2 to page 3, this is language that would have required in the past that these be installed in each classroom in each county, each self-contained classroom. They are now just going to be installed in 5 local school systems that the division will select, with special attention to geographic diversity, and that the division believes in its own judgment that will prove the most useful to have these installed video recording devices in them. I'm sorry, is there a question?
Just keep going. We'll take them at the end.
Okay. Once a local school system has been selected, the superintendent of that school system will select 1 self-contained special education classroom from a public elementary school and 1 self-contained special education classroom from a public high school to install a video recording device. Then each selected self-contained special education classroom will have a device installed beginning with the 2023-2024 school year. And I should note, the definition of a self-contained special education classroom was altered very slightly. Under the bill as it came in, it was any classroom with students who had a disability and were provided special education instruction for at least 50% of the instructional day. Instead, it is now students with a disability who are instructed within that classroom for at least 50% of the instructional day, which I believe was close to the intent originally, but I defer to you guys about that. So there are a number of small changes just conforming with those changes I already discussed. On pages 3 and 4 of this reprint that I've shared, rather than under the bill as introduced, the video recording would be notification of the video recording would go out to teachers. To students and parents, and the sign would be posted outside of the door. Added to that now is that there'd be written notification at least 2 weeks in advance of the activation of the video recording for any school personnel who work within that self-contained classroom. Additionally, under the bills introduced, the video recording would be stored from between 3 months and 6 months. Under an amendment now, the video recording will be stored from between 3 months and 5 years, which is actually after the date of the bill, but assuming the pilot goes well, I believe it'll be extended, and that will be extended into the future. So there are some more conforming changes on page 4 of the bill, but on page 5, there are some more substantive changes. Basically, under the bill as written, after, as you guys probably recall from the testimony on this bill in the first place, the way that this would work is if there was a complaint that was lodged with a law enforcement agency about abuse or neglect, the video recordings would be consulted. And after the resolution of that complaint, under the bill is introduced, affected parents or students could watch the footage. Under this particular amendment, after the resolution of that complaint, any party that is implicated in the complaint, including the parents and students, but also including a member of the school staff, would be able to view the footage after that resolution. There's some technical language changes in also on this page that pertain to the reporting of the incidents of abuse and neglect. It has to go to the principal if someone has reason to suspect that there is abuse or neglect. And upon receiving notice, the principal has to notify the parent or a school employee involved in the incident. Additionally, under the bill as written, the school recording could not be used as evidence against a student for a disciplinary matter not related to a criminal complaint. That protection has also been extended to school employees. So it's just redefining that the purpose of this bill is to prevent abuse and neglect of students, not to use the video recording equipment to evaluate the student for an assessment. Under the original bill, county boards were able to solicit gifts and grants to run the program. That's been removed because the state is now going to fund these pilot programs, as we'll see at the end of this bill. And so on page 7 of the reprint, or page 6 of the bill, there's reporting requirements for those self-contained classrooms that participate in this program. Each year that the program is in place, these classrooms need to report on the number of complaints, what happened when they see them on cameras, identity of anyone on a video recording, and the resolution of the complaints. Those reports will be given to the State Department of Education. Additionally, the county boards need to compare what's happened in the classrooms that was recorded with the resolution and nature of complaints from the 2022-2023 school year as a baseline to compare how the video recording has affected the complaint process and what they've been able to see about abuse and neglect. Additionally, I should add they are also required to report on the cost of maintaining the video recording and monitoring it. Finally, the department is going to evaluate the reports, compare the results collected in these self-contained classrooms with video recordings to complaints in other schools with self-contained classrooms that do not have video recordings. They'll also compare the race, ethnicity, and gender of any students who are the subjects of complaints. And then that report that compiles all the reports filed by each participating school will be compiled by the State Department of Education and before the 2026 legislative session given to the General Assembly and the governor in order to evaluate how this pilot program has gone. Then finally, as I mentioned earlier, the governor is required to appropriate $100,000 for the pilot program in each fiscal year of 2024 and 2025. And that is based on the cost that was given in the fiscal note about the cost to run one of these per classroom is something like in the $10,000 range. So that is why that figure is there. And I think that covers all the amendments. It's a lot of talking. Apologies if
One thing,
I
if
went
I
too
may,
fast.
Alistair, I think I asked for it when the counties are chosen by MSDE based on, we put some language in that they might be the counties that indicated it would be most appropriate to have them have a pilot. And also we said that they would choose classrooms that were among their most enrolled, because we felt it would be not very useful to have a pilot in a classroom of two or three students, more a larger number. So we had something to work with.
Yes, that's
in
right.
there?
Yes, that's in there. It's up to the division. It's up to the judgment of the division which counties are appropriate, but that's in there. And
we have geographic diversity in their selection, as well as perhaps that there are somewhere it's more acutely indicated. Okay. I just wanted to clarify those two. I thought they might have been passed over. Does anybody have any questions about the amendments or any comments about the amendments? Okay. Delegate Lasanti.
Yes, and look, I'm trying to digest a lot of really technical pieces very quickly. Let's go to page 4 of the bill. This is section 4. If a video recorder is not being used for evidence, blah, 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 support a feud a complaint against an employee. The county board shall retain a portion of the video for 1 year after the complaint is made. Wouldn't it make more sense that after the issue is resolved? I mean, depending upon the nature of it, depending on what other processes may be invoked by whatever you capture on the video, I would think that it would be necessary to preserve that piece until we have a resolution to whatever complaint is concerned.
I'm comfortable with that change in language. It's probably just something we overlooked.
Yeah, it's
and
fine.
The amendment's sort of a living document. Alistair can update it a little bit. So without complaint, we'll make that change.
Okay. Are we, and I'm again trying to digest a lot of this really quickly. From a more technical standpoint, and maybe Mr. Willems may have a better idea with this, but these type of recording devices usually work on a loop, and depending upon the type of device that they use, it may be a week loop, it may be 10 days, it may be 3 days, I don't know. But the point being that I think somewhere we need to recognize that, if there's a window of opportunity for them to be taped over. So is that in any way here? Do we cause any problems with,
So do I understand that you're suggesting that there's an amount of time when an unused piece of recording would no longer need to be kept if there was no complaint? Is that what you're getting at? Do I understand that?
No, I'm just saying that there's a couple different types of devices that that the school system can use. One way they could go about it is that they every time, however long the recording mechanism is, that after that it goes into storage for a period of time, or there is a depending again on the type of device that is selected by the individual school system, they could automatically tape over something, when it gets to the end of its life, it begins taping over. It's just a technical issue that I think that we have to be very careful that whatever parameters we have set out in for maintenance of that tape, that it's consistent with the technology that exists.
I think these would likely be stored digitally. They're probably digital cameras and would be stored as files. Under the bill as it came in, all the files would be stored from between 3 to 6 months, depending on how the county board determined to do that. Under the amendment, it could be up to 5 years of storage. And again, I think would be up to either the county boards or if the State Department of Education wanted to set parameters on that. But I think they're likely to be digital files and not not a
Right.
videotape.
But keeping in mind, this is just to the committee, that's a lot of storage for, and a lot of indexing and a lot of maintenance that gives an opportunity for a lot of things to go wrong. So I just want to make sure that our language is tight on this. That's all.
So this is an additional piece. And I don't know how to set up a motion within, if we move on this, we made that one small change. It's a bigger change. So can we put a pin in that and see if we're comfortable with the rest of the amendments? And then perhaps entertain an amendment from you, Delegate Lasanti, on that subject. Can we do that? All right. So
Yes, sorry.
on the actual amendments, as far as they go, I didn't hear any other comments. Delegate Lasanti's are about the bill itself if we add these amendments. So I'll either take commentary or someone would like to move that set of amendments. I'd entertain that as well.
I move the amendments favorable.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Delegate Branch. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so all in favor of the amended of that set of amendments with that one small word change that we picked up from Delegate Lasanti, just raise your hand so we can see them there. Okay, it's unanimous. Excellent. All right, now, Delegate Lasanti, do you want to suggest an amendment that we would add at this time?
Not really. I mean, again, so this is a pretty I'm comfortable with the bill in concept. I just say to the committee that there may be that, and I don't want to hold up the bill, but between now and the time we take it back to the full committee, there may be we all need to look really carefully to make sure that our language is consistent and that we haven't that we don't have unintended consequences, because there's a lot here. That's all.
Yes, I agree. So are you willing to wait and work on that after we take up the bill here?
Yeah, I'm not trying to stall the bill.
I just want to make sure. I mean,
yeah.
we want to deal with it fully.
I'm comfortable with the bill in concept and willing to move forward. I'm putting a placeholder in there that if something arises, that I will bring it to your attention.
Okay, excellent. All right, so then I believe, unless there's other discussion or other amendments, we're ready to either talk about the bill or move on the bill.
Move favorable.
I have a favorable motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All right, all in favor is the bill as amended to this point, signify by raising your hand. It's easier for me to just see everybody's hand go up in the air. All right, so we'll take that bill to the committee, and Delegate Lasanti, sorry, I almost did that. Please, let's discuss that. Maybe we have something we add in voting, or if we need to, something to tighten it up a little bit.
Yep.
All right, that's the end of that one. Our next bill is House Bill 384, which is Delegate Boyce's wonderful bill about bronchodilators. I'll give you a quick rundown. We are not going to add, because no one was particularly interested in adding the amendments that were suggested by the Maryland Nurses Association, which would have severely limited the use of them. I have been in discussions with the American Lung Association and the AAFA, the Allergen and Asthma Federation of America, and we are going to put an amendment into this into this bill saying that a nurse will be in charge. They can clinically designate somebody, but there will be training that will help an individual, a nurse or another person who is trained to delineate to do their best job of deciding if someone is having an asthma attack or if they're having anaphylaxis. And they're not going to be absolute. We're not going to say that they're absolutely sure, but there was some concern that someone would be administered the wrong medicine. It was difficult to get a good indication, which would be the worst false diagnosis. Apparently, neither one is terribly dangerous, but there are differing opinions on that matter. So it seems to me the way to do it is to make these bronchodilators available. It looks like we need them. Many people have their very first asthma attack at school, so they wouldn't have all the prescriptions and all the doctor visits. And as Delegate Wilkins so astutely pointed out, Some students may never get those because they're unable to afford a doctor or do that sort of thing. And that's significant also. So we're going to put training in there, and we're going to go back to there's a section before this that deals almost identically with epinephrine, EpiPens. And we're going to take that section also, and we're going to put that there's a similar training. All the training said for EpiPens before was training basically in how to use them, and not training in necessarily how to diagnose or how to triage a situation like that. So, Alistair, did I cover it pretty well? Or do you want to add something there?
Yeah, I would just say that we're also taking those sections on epinephrine and making them parallel to this
Right.
as it came in. So one provision of this bill was allowing county boards to get donations from pharmacies or manufacturers to use bronchodilators. So the epinephrine section has been amended to also allow county boards to get donations for auto-injectable epinephrine pens.
So we didn't have them side by side before, so the go-to would have been epinephrine because people didn't have access to stock inhalers. But now that we do, there's going to be some decision making sometimes, and so we want people to be trained to make that decision. And it wasn't hard to find training. We did a quick Google, and Georgia has a whole. It's not online training, but they have a packet that trains people. So clearly we're going to put it to MSDE and to these organizations to talk to them to come up with a training that does side by side. There's plenty of trainings in how to do both separately, but there's not a lot of training in how to distinguish and make a spot decision. And so we're going to require that they come up with something like that. Delegate Wilkins, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and everyone for the diligent work on this bill to help get us on the same page. I think I just answered my question, but looking at the amendments really quickly, I see that there's still some language about not administering the bronchodilator unless the student is identified as having an allergy and has a prescription, but I guess it's just for pre-K students. Can we just quickly expand on that?
Yeah, that was how the bill was introduced. So I not a medical expert, but I think the idea is that you want to be extra cautious for those students. And that's another parallel that was made to the epinephrine section as well.
Dr. Sandramelli, thank you. I was about to ask you to talk about why we might have carved out students of that age.
Yeah, so in that age, there's a little more diagnostic uncertainty about asthma. So we kind of, I also advise them to apply this to like kindergarten and up for that reason, because kids that are younger have more presentations with respiratory stuff like croup, for example, if you guys are familiar with that, and even bronchiolitis, which there are young kids who need asthma meds for sure, but we would want those kids to be assessed and labeled by a physician and not just like assuming that they have asthma. Once you get into 5 and up though, it's more straightforward.
Thank you. Delegate Wilkins, does that answer your question?
It does. I'm good with these amendments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else with commentary on the amendments? And if there's no, Delegate Lasanti.
Thank you. Just quickly, I'm glad to see the protection, I guess, of the school personnel. It says, except for any willful or gross negligent act. So that's for the volunteer as well. I think that's very important, especially in schools where there's no nurse. And I'll just say this for it's not an amendment, but I'll just say it for Mr. Willem's perspective when this training comes there. I always think it's really important to overemphasize the fact of calling 911 before, while you're doing other things.
Thanks. Thank you. Any other commentary? Okay, so we have some amendments before us. If there's no commentary on them, I'm willing to take up a motion on them.
Move favorable on the amendments.
Thank you, Delegate Guyton. Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Alex Casper is asking to talk, but unless somebody has a question for her, we're not going to recognize her right at this particular moment. I'm almost tempted, but we're talking about the training. So I think we're going to just move on here. So we have the amendment before us. All in favor of the amendment as read, please raise your hand so I can see it. Magnificent, 7 hands. And now we have the bill as amended.
Move favorable on the bill.
Thank you. I probably saw somebody else light
Second.
up. I think that will get Brandon. I got a second. I heard it. All right. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of this bill as amended, raise your hand, please. All right. Delegate Barnes ain't gonna be too mad at me. We got it done by 4:32. I want to say thank you to the committee. This was hard work. These were 2 bills that required a certain amount of scrutiny. I know that we moved forward on them in the best way we thought we could. Here's to the future on them. Thank you all very much.